Hi, how are you all? Hope you are well. I bring you again Steve Chandler's Best Way to Motivate Yourself, 9 to 16. So listen carefully to the ways to motivate yourself and change your life. 9. Build a track record. It's not what we do that makes us tired, it's what we don't do. The tasks we don't complete cause the most fatigue. I was giving a motivational seminar to a utility company recently, and, during one of the breaks, a small man who looked to be in his 60s came up to me. My problem, he said, is that I never seem to finish anything. I'm always starting things, this project and that, but I never finish. I'm always off onto something else before anything is completed. He then asked whether I could give him some affirmations that might alter his belief system. He correctly saw the problem as being one of belief. Because he did not believe he was a good finisher. He did not finish anything. So he wanted a magical word or phrase to repeat to himself that would brainwash him into being different. Do you think affirmations are what you need? I asked him. If you had to learn how to use a computer, could you do it by sitting on your bed and repeating the affirmations, I know how to use a computer. I am great at using computers. I am a wizard on a computer. He admitted that affirmations would probably have no effect on his ability to use a computer. The best way to change your belief system is to change the truth about you, I said. We believe the truth faster than we believe false affirmations. To believe that you are a good finisher, you must begin by building a track record of finished tasks. He followed my suggestions with great enthusiasm. He bought a notebook and at the top of the first page he wrote, things I've finished. Each day, he made a point of setting small goals and finishing them. Whereas in the past he would be sweeping his front walk and leave it unfinished when the phone rang, now he'd let the phone ring so he could finish the job and record it in his notebook. The more things he wrote down, the more confident he became that he was truly becoming a finisher. And he had a notebook to prove it. Consider how much more permanent his new belief was than if he had tried to do it with affirmations. He could have whispered to himself all night long, I am a great finisher, but the right side of his brain would have known better. It would have said to him, no you're not, stop worrying about what you think of yourself and start building a track record that proves that you can motivate yourself to do whatever you want to do. 10. Welcome the unexpected. Most people do not see themselves as being creative, but we all are. Most people say, my sister's creative, she paints, or my father's creative, he sings and writes music. We miss the point that we are all creative. One of the reasons we don't see ourselves that way is that we normally associate being creative with being original. But in reality, creativity has nothing to do with originality, it has everything to do with being unexpected. You don't have to be original to be creative. In fact, it sometimes helps to realize that no one is original. Even Mozart said that he never wrote an original melody in his life. His melodies were all recombinations of old folk melodies. Look at Elvis Presley. People thought he was a true original when he first came upon the scene. But he wasn't. He was just the first white person to ever sing with enthusiasm. His versions of songs, however, were often direct copies from African American rhythm and blues singers. Elvis acknowledged that his entire style was a combination of Little Richard, Jackie Wilson, and James Brown, as well as a variety of gospel singers. Although Elvis wasn't original, he was creative. Because he was so unexpected, if you believe you were created in the image of your Creator, then you must, therefore, be creative. Then, if you're willing to see yourself as creative, you can begin to cultivate it in everything you do. You can start coming up with all kinds of unexpected solutions to the challenges that life throws at you. 11. Find your master key. I used to have the feeling that everyone else in life had at one time or another been issued instruction books on how to make life work. And I, for some reason, wasn't there when they passed them out. I felt a little like the Spanish poet Cesar Vallejo, who wrote, "Well, on the day I was born, God was sick." Still struggling in my mid-30s with a pessimistic outlook and no sense of purpose, I voiced my frustration once to a friend of mine, Dr. Mike Killebrew, who recommended a book to me. Until that time, I didn't really believe that there could be a book that could tell you how to make your life work. The name of the book was The Master Key to Riches by Napoleon Hill. It sat on my shelf for quite a while. I didn't believe in motivational books or self-help. They were for weak and gullible fools. I was finally persuaded to read the book by the word riches in the title. Riches would be a welcome addition to my life. Riches were probably what I needed to make me happy and wipe out my troubles. What the book actually did was a lot more than increase my earning capacity, although by practicing the principles in the book, my earnings doubled in less than a year. Napoleon Hill's advice ultimately sparked a fire in me that changed my entire life. I soon acquired an ability that I would later realize was self-motivation, after reading that book. I read all of Napoleon Hill's books. I also began buying motivational audiobooks for listening to in my car and for playing by my bed as I went to sleep each night. Everything I had learned in school, in college, and from my family and friends was out the window. Without fully understanding it, I was engaging in the process of completely rebuilding my own thinking. I was, thought by thought, replacing the old cynical and passive orientation to life with a new optimistic and energetic outlook. So, what is this master key to riches? The great master key to riches, said Hill, is nothing more or less than the self-discipline necessary to help you take full and complete possession of your own mind. Remember, it is profoundly significant that the only thing over which you have complete control is your own mental attitude. Taking complete possession of my own mind would be a lifelong adventure, but it was one that I was excited about beginning. Maybe Hill's book will not be your own master key, but I promise you that you'll find an instruction book on how to make your life work if you keep looking. It might be The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, The Last Word in Power by Tracy Goss, Frankenstein's Castle by Colin Wilson, or The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem by Nathaniel Branden. All those books would have worked the primary transformation for me, and they have all taken me higher up the motivational ladder. Your own key might even come from the spiritual literature of your choice. You'll find it when you're ready to seek. It's out there waiting for you. 12. Put your library on wheels. One of the greatest opportunities for motivating yourself today lies in the way you use your drive time. There is no longer any excuse for time in the car to be downtime or frustrating or time that isn't motivating. With the huge variety of audio tapes and CDs now available, you can use your time on the road to educate and motivate yourself at the same time. When we use our time in the car to simply listen to hip-hop or to curse traffic, we are undermining our own frame of mind. Moreover, by listening to tabloid-type news programs for too long a period of time, we actually get a distorted view of life. News programs today have one goal: to shock or sadden the listener. The most vulgar and horrific stories around the state and nation are searched for and found. I experienced this firsthand when I worked for a daily newspaper. I saw how panicked the city desk got if there were no murders or rapes that day. I watched as they tore through the wire stories to see if a news item from another state could be gruesome enough to save the front page. If there's no drowning, they'll reluctantly go with a near drowning. There is nothing wrong with this. It's not immoral or unethical. It feeds the public's hunger for bad news. It's exactly what people want, so, in a way, it is a service, but it reaches its most damaging proportions when the average listener to a car radio believes that all this bad news is a true and fair reflection of what's happening in the world. It's not. It is deliberately selected to spice up the broadcast and keep people listening. It is designed to horrify, because horrified people are a riveted audience and advertisers. Like it that way, the media have also found ways to extend the stories that are truly horrible, so that we don't hear them just once. If a plane goes down, we can listen all week long as investigators pick through the wreckage and family members weep before the microphones. A week later, playing the last words of the pilots found in the black box on the air extends the story further. In the meantime, while we are glued to our news stations, air safety is better than ever before. Literally millions of planes are taking off and landing without incident. Deaths per passenger mile are decreasing every year as the technology for safe flight improves. But is that news? No. And because my seminar schedule requires that I travel a lot by air, I can see up close what the so-called news has done to our psyches. Simple turbulence in the air will cause my fellow passengers' eyes to enlarge and their hands to grip their armrests in terror. The negative programming of our minds has had a huge impact on us. If we would be more selective with how we program our minds while we are driving, we could have some exciting breakthroughs in two important areas: knowledge and motivation. There are now hundreds of audiobook series on self-motivation. I watched as they tore through the wire stories to see if a news item from another state could be gruesome enough to save the front page. If there's no drowning, they'll reluctantly go with a near drowning. There is nothing wrong with this. It's not immoral or unethical. It feeds the public's hunger for bad news. It's exactly what people want, so, in a way, it is a service, but it reaches its most damaging proportions when the average listener to a car radio believes that all this bad news is a true and fair reflection of what's happening in the world. It's not. It is deliberately selected to spice up the broadcast and keep people listening. It is designed to horrify, because horrified people are a riveted audience and advertisers. Like it that way, the media have also found ways to extend the stories that are truly horrible, so that we don't hear them just once. If a plane goes down, we can listen all week long as investigators pick through the wreckage and family members weep before the microphones. A week later, playing the last words of the pilots found in the black box on the air extends the story further. In the meantime, while we are glued to our news stations, air safety is better than ever before. Literally millions of planes are taking off and landing without incident. Deaths per passenger mile are decreasing every year as the technology for safe flight improves. But is that news? No. And because my seminar schedule requires that I travel a lot by air, I can see up close what the so-called news has done to our psyches. Simple turbulence in the air will cause my fellow passengers' eyes to enlarge and their hands to grip their armrests in terror. The negative programming of our minds has had a huge impact on us. If we would be more selective with how we program our minds while we are driving, we could have some exciting breakthroughs in two important areas: knowledge and motivation. There are now hundreds of audiobook series on self-motivation, on how to use the internet, on health, on goal setting, and on all the useful subjects that we need to think about if we're going to grow. As Emerson once said, we become what we think about all day long. I first heard that sentence years ago while driving in my car listening to an Earl Nightingale audio program. If we leave what we think about to chance or to a tabloid radio station, then we lose a large measure of control over our own minds. Many people today drive a great deal of the time. With motivational and educational audiobooks, it has been estimated that drivers can receive the equivalent of a full semester in college with 3 months worth of driving. Most libraries have large sections devoted to audiobooks, and all the best and all the current audiobooks are now available on internet bookseller sites. Are all motivational programs effective? No. Some might not move you at all. That's why it's good to read the customer reviews before buying an audio program over the internet, but there have been so many times when a great motivational audio played in my car has had a positive impact on my frame of mind and my ability to live and work with enthusiasm. One moment stands out in my memory above all others, although there have been hundreds. I was driving in my car one day listening to Wayne Dyer's classic audio series, Choosing Your Own Greatness. At the end of a long, moving argument for not making our happiness dependent on some material object hanging out there in our future, Dyer said, "There is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way." That one thought eased itself into my mind at that moment and never left it. It is not an original thought, but Dyer's gentle presentation, so filled with serene joy and so effortlessly spoken, changed me in a way that no ancient volume of wisdom ever could have. That's one of the powers of the audiobook form of learning. It simulates an extremely intimate one-on-one experience. Wayne Dyer, Marianne Williamson, Caroline Myss, Barbara Scher, Tom Peters, Nathaniel Brandon, Earl Nightingale, Alan Watts, and Anthony Robbins are just a few motivators whose tapes have changed my life. You'll find your own favorites. You don't have to find time to go read at the library. Forget the library. You are already driving in 1:13. Definitely plan your work. Some of us may think we're too depressed right now to start on a new course of personal motivation. Or we're too angry. Or we're too upset about certain problems, but Napoleon Hill insisted that that's the perfect time to learn one of life's most unusual rules. There is one unbeatable rule for the master of sorrows and disappointments, and that is the transmutation of those emotional frustrations through definitely planned work. It is a rule which has no equal. Once we get the picture of who we want to be, definitely planned work is the next step on the path. Definitely planned work inspires the energy of purpose. Without it, we suffer from a weird kind of attention deficit disorder. We're short on intention. We don't know where we're going or what we're up to. When I was a training instructor at a time management company many years ago, we taught people in business how to maximize time spent on the job. The primary idea was this: 1 hour of planning saves 3 hours of execution. However, most of us don't feel we have time for that hour of planning. We're too busy cleaning up yesterday's problems that were caused by lack of planning. We don't yet see that planning would be the most productive hour we spend. Instead, we wander unconsciously into the workplace and react to crises. Again, most of which result from a failure to plan. A carefully planned meeting can take a third of the time that an unplanned free-for-all takes. A carefully planned day can take a third of the time that an unplanned free-for-all day takes. My friend Kirk Nelson manages a large sales staff at a major radio station. His success in life was moderate until he discovered the principle of definitely planned work. Now he spends 2 hours each weekend on his computer planning the week ahead. It's made all the difference in the world, he said. Not only do I get 3 times the work done, but I feel so in control. The week feels like my week. The work feels like my work. My life feels like my life. It is impossible to work with a definite sense of purpose and be depressed at the same time. Carefully planned work will motivate you to do more and worry less. 14. Bounce your thoughts. If you've ever coached or worked with kids who play basketball, you know that most of them have a tendency to dribble with only one hand, the one attached to their dominant arm. When you notice a child doing this, you might call him aside and say, "Billy, you're dribbling with just the one hand every time," and the defender can easily defend you when you do that. Your options are cut off. You need to dribble with your other hand, too, so that he never knows which way you're going to go. At this point Billy might say, "I can't." And you smile and say, "What, do you mean you can't?" And Billy then shows you that when he dribbles with his subdominant, weaker, hand and arm, the ball is all over the place. So, to his mind, he can't, Billy. You say, "It's not that you can't, it's just that you haven't." Then you explain to Billy that his other hand can dribble just as well if he is willing to practice. It's just a matter of logging enough bounces. It's the simple formation of a habit. After enough practice dribbling with his other hand, Billy will learn you were right. The same principle is true for reprogramming our own dominant habits of thinking. If our dominant thought habit is pessimistic, all we have to do is dribble with the other hand, think optimistic thoughts more and more often until it feels natural. If someone had asked me, before I started my journey to self-motivation that began with Napoleon Hill, why I didn't try to be more goal-oriented and optimistic, I would have said, "I can't. It's just not me. I wouldn't know how." But it would have been more accurate for me to just say, "I haven't." Thinking is just like bouncing the basketball. On the one hand, I can think pessimistically and build that side of me up. It's just a matter of repeatedly bouncing those thoughts. On the other hand, I can think optimistically, one thought at a time, and build that habit up. Self-motivation is all a matter of how much in control you want to be. I read somewhere that we humans have up to 45,000 thoughts a day. I can't vouch for the accuracy of that figure, especially because I know some people who seem to have no more than 9 or 10. However, if it is true that we have 45,000 thoughts, then you can see how patient we have to be about turning a pessimistic thought habit around. The overall pattern won't change after just a few positive bounces of the brain. If you're a pessimist, your biocomputer has really been programmed heavily in that direction. But it doesn't take long before a new pattern can emerge. As a former pessimist myself, I can tell you it really happens, however slowly but surely. You do change. One thought at a time. If you can bounce it one way, you can bounce it the other. 15. Light your lazy dynamite. Henry Ford used to point out to his colleagues that there wasn't any job that couldn't be handled if they were willing to break it down into little pieces, and when you've broken a job down, remember to allow yourself some slow motion in beginning the first piece. Just take it slow and easy, because it isn't important how fast you are doing it. What's important is that you are doing it. Most of our hardest jobs never seem to get done. The mere thought of doing the whole job at a high energy level is frequently too off-putting to allow motivation to occur. But a good way to ease yourself into that motivation is to act as if you were the laziest person on the planet. It wasn't much of an act for me. By accepting that you're going to do your task in a slow and lazy way, there is no anxiety or dread about getting it started. In fact, you can even have fun by entering into it as if you were in a slow-motion comedy, flowing into the work like a person made of water. But the paradox is that the slower you start something, the faster you will be finished. When you first think about doing something hard or overwhelming, you are most aware of how you don't want to do it at all. In other words, the mental picture you have of the activity of doing it fast and furiously is not a happy picture. So you think of ways to avoid doing the job altogether. The thought of starting slowly is an easy thought. And doing it slowly allows you to actually start doing it. Therefore it gets finished. Another thing that happens when you flow into a project slowly is that speed will often overtake you without your forcing it. Just as the natural rhythm inside you will get you in sync with what you are doing. You'll be surprised how soon your conscious mind stops forcing the action and your subconscious mind supplies you with easy energy, so take your time. Start out lazy. Soon your tasks will be keeping the slow but persistent rhythm of that hypnotic song on Paul McCartney's Red Rose Speedway album, "Oh Lazy Dynamite." The dynamite is living inside you. You don't have to be frenzied about setting it off. It lights just as well to a match struck slowly. 16. Choose the happy few. Politely walk away from friends who don't support the changes in your life. There will be friends who don't. They will be jealous and afraid every time you make a change. They will see your new motivation as a condemnation of their own lack of it. In subtle ways, they will bring you back down to who you used to be. Beware of friends and family who do this. They know not what they do. The people you spend time with will change your life in one way or another. If you associate with cynics, they'll pull you down with them. If you associate with people who support you in being happy and successful, you will have a head start on being happy and successful. Throughout the day we have many choices regarding who we are going to be with and talk to. Don't just gravitate to the coffee machine and participate in the negative gossip because it's the only game in town. It will drain your energy and stifle your own optimism. We all know who lifts us up, and we all know who brings us down. It's okay to start being more careful about to whom we give our time. In his inspiring book Spontaneous Healing, Andrew Weil recommends, make a list of friends and acquaintances in whose company you feel more alive, happier, more optimistic. Pick one whom you will spend some time with this week. When you're in a conversation with a cynic, possibilities seem to have a way of disappearing. A mildly depressing sense of fatalism seems to take over the conversation. No new ideas and no innovative humor. Cynics, observed President Calvin Coolidge, do not create. On the other hand, enthusiasm for life is contagious. And being in a conversation with an optimist always opens us up to see more and more of life's possibilities, Kierkegaard once said. If I were to wish for anything, I should not wish for wealth and power, but for the passionate sense of the potential, for the eye which, ever young and ardent, sees the possible. Pleasure disappoints, possibility never. Thank you very much for being with me. I end with the best wishes for all of you. May everyone be well and healthy. Bye and prayers for all of you.